Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
IVM Likes is an IVM production, and if you enjoy our show, do check out the On Course podcast. If you're a student planning to study abroad and wondering how to go about it, hosts Akhil and Alisha have all the answers for you. From financing your education to decoding that application process, they cover it all on the On Course podcast. Check it out.
Hey, welcome to IVM Likes. I'm from IVM. My name is May. And usually here we do Made in India. That's my show. And with me, we've got the big boss, Amit Doshi. Hey, Amit.
Hey.
And we've got Shashar, our head of production.
That is my official name on my birth certificate, Shashar.
Yeah. it's like your disco name. When you go out, Goldman, this is the Shashar coming into the house. Everyone, like they part like the Red Sea, right? So, as usual, what we do every episode is that we recommend a film, a book, and a TV show, and then we talk about something completely random, usually pop culture related. So
Completely
today,
random, but in the sphere of
pop culture.
Yeah.
Of course, because that's what we're about. We basically recommend stuff. It's called IVM Likes because it's about stuff we like.
Yes.
It's not stuff we don't like. Though you might recommend something that I might not like. It's okay.
It's complicated.
You'll like it.
Complicated.
It's all right. Yeah, it's confusing. We like confusing people. So today I'm recommending a film, Shashar is recommending a book, and Amit's recommending a TV show. So let's throw it down to Amit first.
All right, sure. So the show I'm going to recommend is called The Carmichael Show. Mm-hmm. This is a sitcom. I think it's in the third season right now. It stars Gerard Carmichael as the Carmichael, the guy who runs the Carmichael Show, right?
It's a
basically.
really easy way to name your show.
Yes, it is. So he's a pretty fun, he's a pretty interesting stand-up comic, right? And it actually is a very Seinfeld-esque show, in the sense that he is just as bad an actor as Jerry Seinfeld is.
Well done.
But like Jerry Seinfeld, or rather like the show Seinfeld, the rest of the cast is really, really good, right? So it's got David Alan Grier in it. It's got Loretta Devine in it. It has Laurel Howery in it. I mean, so this is a really kind of, the rest of the cast is really, really good. Yeah. What I like about the show is it is a fairly political sitcom, which you don't see that much, right? I mean, that's something that used to happen a lot in in the U.S. in the 1970s. You had Norman Lear used to do All in the Family, The Jeffersons, which were pretty political. Something like MASH is also a fairly political show, but recently you see that most of our sitcoms are not political.
Yeah,
anymore.
Or like Blackish now. I think
Blackish,
that's
Blackish and this came out around the same time, and and they're very. So this is a multi-camera kind of two-set show, so it's not as dynamic as Blackish is in some ways. Like,
but
visually,
it is still a black family
it's
sitcom.
The same kind of it's the same kind of feel to it. But this is actually a lot more. So Blackish is still a family sitcom, right? It just is that. Occasionally they'll talk about issues which are related to black people or this, but it is a family show.
Yeah.
It's basically most of the jokes are related to normal family sitcom stuff, whereas this is a really kind of political show, not necessarily just black issues, but political issues, right? So I mean, like in the first season, which was just 6 episodes, they covered Black Lives Matter, somebody close dying, transgender teens, agnostics in a religious family, and gun control.
Very nice.
So these are in the first 6 episodes you hit all these topics, and then I know. So I mean, and again, it's really, really funny done. The way that they bring out the humor, the conversations and stuff like that. They're real conversations in some ways. Right? So the second season has this great episode on Bill Cosby, and I know you guys spoke about this stuff a lot, right? So I mean, the purpose of the episode itself was again around the idea of how do you separate an artist from his art.
Yeah.
Which, I thought they had some interesting perspectives from. So they had a fairly different perspective, right? So Gerard Carmichael, the main guy, he's like, guy's an asshole. I would never talk to him, but he's funny as hell, and he's an artist, and there are so few funny people, you got to watch it. His wife is like, no, I stay the hell away from him.
Yeah.
His father doesn't care. One way or the other. He's like, it has to do with, there's some racial stuff there, right? most of Bill Cosby's accusers are white. His father is a male of a certain age. So, like, they don't really, so there's some of that in there. The mom is conflicted.
Yeah.
She believes that the accusations are true and she wants to hate him, but at the same time, so it's really kind of...
And being a woman, it's a little bit different. Like,
exactly, yeah. So,
also, what he's done for the black community, which is the big...
that's another big part of it. And so then there's some negative around that as well. His brother hates Bill Cosby because he keeps talking about how the younger people keep wearing their pants down to their feathers and, like, talking about that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So his brother hates him for that reason. So it's just, like, they examine this issue and they look at it from all 6 angles, which I thought was a really kind of cool thing to do. And it's not slapstick, right?
Yeah,
a lot of
and for a sitcom to do.
So I'd strongly recommend this. It's got a great cast again besides Carmichael's funny as hell, but he's not he can't act, But I mean, like, the rest of the cast is really, really good. So the Carmichael Show.
Carmichael Show. And Shar, what about your book for this week?
I'm recommending a book called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. He's a guy who wrote the Wayward Pines trilogy.
Okay.
Which became a TV show that was, I think the first episode was directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Is that kind of book. But the Dark Matter is not. It's a very, it's like a weekend read.
Okay.
But it is a thriller. So the idea is based on the fact that every time you make a choice in life, you're splitting the universe into, a separate multiverse. Like, so there's a multiverse in which you've made different choices and you lead different lives. We're focused on this guy who's a physics professor in like a college. He has a wife that he loves and a son called Jason Deason. One day he gets kidnapped, and when he wakes up, he's in a new universe where people seem to think he's a genius. Not that he's not a genius, he's a physics professor, but he seems to have achieved way more than he did in his real life.
Okay.
His wife is missing, his son is missing, they don't seem to exist. And he wakes up in his town in Chicago, but it's a completely different world that he knew.
Okay.
So this is his search to get back to his wife and his kids. But because it's the multiverse, there are so many options. Every time he tries to, recreate the world he used to live in, he ends up in a different version of Chicago. One where suddenly his wife is dead. One where he's won like a Nobel Prize in physics. And one where Chicago is completely freezing, that nobody inhabits it anymore. Yeah. This is a very spoiler-heavy book, so it's very difficult for me to tell you exactly what happens, because there is a big plot twist which happens. It's not difficult to guess, honestly, if you start reading it.
Right.
But it is very interesting because it's the idea of you could have so many unexplored. One single choice has, set you on a different path. Yeah. It's a, paths not explored kind of fantasy. Right. And what happens if you actually went to those lives, and would you be happy with that?
That sounds really interesting.
It's really interesting because it's just, you could spend your whole life thinking this is what you did and this is what you wanted to do. And then if you have the option of seeing what you could have lived like if you hadn't made that choice, or if you had if you had taken that job, or had, not married this person, or whatever it is. It's quite fun. It's very pulpy because it's like, it's a thriller where he's trying to chase his old life. But it's pretty interesting, I thought, because it's like he really thinks about his life's choices, which is the point of it.
I always love these alternate views.
Because they're really fascinating.
And it's a very short book. It's a weekend read. And there is a big twist, and there is some of the street stuff. Like, it's a little predictable because once you grasp what's happening, as soon as he lands in this new universe, he's taking time to figure out what's happening. But it's not difficult to guess that this is obviously an alternate universe.
Right. Yeah.
So once he starts to chase his real life, you can guess what happens. But I'll tell you after the recording, guys. It's really good. What I liked is that it doesn't get too involved in the physics of it. So that because for me, it's not like I'm not super interested in this universe building in something like this. So it keeps that clear. Like, there's not too much mumbo jumbo. It's like this is how it works. This is the quantum physics mechanics of it all.
This is it.
But it's more about him trying to find his wife and his kid and his family and going back to the life he thought he wants.
Oh.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm going to get this. I think this sounds like something I want to read.
Dark Matter by?
Blake Crouch.
Okay. So with me, I'm recommending a film this week, and it's a Michel Gondry movie. It's called Microbe and Gasoline, and it came out in 2015. Okay. Now, Michel Gondry is most famous for directing Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Love that movie.
And love that movie. That movie, man. Be Kind, Rewind, and The Science of Sleep. He's also really well known as a music video director. So he's done Radiohead, Chemical Brothers, Beck, White Stripes, Foo Fighters, Everlong. That was his video. The Rolling Stones as well. I think Give Me Shelter, and there's one more, like a Rolling Stone was also Michel Gondry. So he is a really interesting director. He's a French dude, and he does... I like... One thing I like about him and his movies is their... they really have the ability in a very odd way to like pull at your heartstrings. They're very endearing. So Microbe and Gasoline is a movie about these two teenage boys who basically one of them, who's Microbe, is like this like aspiring artist, but he has like trouble making friends in school, and he meets Gasoline, who's like him, a bit of an outcast in school as well. Now the thing is, I think school's out and it's summer, and they decide to build a car with like a house on top. So they do this, they build this little house car thing or whatever, and they end up just going on an adventure on this road trip and traveling around France. And it's really nice because the two of them have this really great relationship. One's obviously the slightly butcher one, and the other one's like this really quiet, like sweet artistic one. But the two of them are so great because they sort of get each other. They get like why they don't fit in school and that kind of thing. And also on this road trip, it's what they go through. It's like that coming of age movie, and you know, you kind of see like what they go through. They kind of grow up a little bit. Also, their parents freaking panic because they've just up and left. Like one night they just land up, and it's really funny because there's something with their vehicle, right? It's like this really small kind of car, like it looks like a cart, right, with like a house on it. So every time like a cop comes by, they'll stop it and they'll like cover the wheels so it just looks like a house. Because it's technically a house. Like it's a wooden house with a window and everything. So it's really cute. Like I was saying, it's so surreal and kind of endearing, and like Michel Gondry is so good at doing that. And I really enjoyed the film. I actually watched it at Mammy. And one of the more famous, because the two boys are too young, like I've never really heard of them before, but Audrey Tautou from Amélie, she's she's a mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's the mother in it. So she has like a small role, but I just like this movie. Like if you like something that's sweet and endearing, and these two boys, and you really like get into the movie because you're totally rooting for them the whole time. You're like, yeah, I want to get a car that has a house on it. Oh, cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so it's really fun and really nicely done, and it's told in a really great way. I think Michel Gondry has this way of telling stories in a very odd way. That's why Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was such a great story. You really get that love. It's such an odd love story, but then you so get it. You get every time like they're going through some emotional turmoil, you get it, because I don't know what it is about him. He has this ability to get so much out of his actors, and this is like two boys, two young boys. So I really liked it. So my recommendation is Michel Gondry's Microbe and Gasoline. Your book recommendation is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and Amit's TV show is The Carmichael
So let
Show.
me ask you a question about the Microbe and Gasoline thing, because I just Googled it when you said the name. Was it like it did not do well at all financially? I mean, like $4 million budget, less than $225,000 made.
Yeah, that's why I was at Mammy.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Festival movie.
Jokes.
My question is, why is it named that? Like, why is it
Microbe
named?
and Gasoline? I honestly am not sure. It's weird in French, so I just assumed that.
I get it.
But I don't know why. Like, I watched the movie and I really enjoyed it. And it's weird because if you go to like Rotten Tomatoes, like 91% on Rotten.
Exactly, yeah. So this seems like
also highly rated, but made no money.
Yeah, so the weird thing is when I actually like started to do a little research on this, because I had seen this movie at Mammy a couple of years ago, all the critics loved it.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I didn't expect that. I'm just a Gondry fan, and I love his movies, and that's why I went to go see it. Not knowing what it was about at all, but when I watched it, it was sweet. Like, it was really nice, and I totally recommend this movie. Cool. So, next, the three of us are going to be talking about why and how we got into the podcast world, and what we love about it after this break.
What's the best new restaurant in town?
Which bar sucked? What's the worst new Hindi film? What's the most obscure thing to do on the weekend?
And what's the most interesting new walking tour?
If you want to know how to make the most of Bombay, listen to the Podcast by thedailypow.com. We are Pronuti,
Amit,
and Purva.
We're your guide to what to do, see, and eat in the city. You can find new episodes of the podcast every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer, and on thedailypow.com.
Hey, so this is the section where we talk about pop culture-y type stuff things. And today it's about podcasts, because we are a podcast company.
Yes, we are.
And the big boss is here, so I thought we'd just like, hey, boss, let's talk about podcasts. Cause
That's a good thing to do.
So, I guess we're trying to talk about what got us into podcasts in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know if you guys remember the first one and how you found
I
it.
vaguely do.
Yeah.
I know the first one I love.
You do.
Yeah.
I
How
also
did you
know
find
vaguely.
it also?
So, Harry Potter obsession, essentially, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, like, this was very early, 2004 or something, like right when podcast started. And I was reading all the Harry Potter stuff and got into some of the forums and stuff like that. And the people who were running the forums, there were two sites. There was one site called the MuggleNet and another site called the Leaky Cauldron.
Correct.
And both of them started doing their own podcasts. And so that's when I found out, hey, this is a thing. Let me this. And then from that, I started moving into things which are more enduring interests than Harry Potter are, right? Harry Potter I was really into for like 3 months. But then
It
I got
opened a world
Yes, it
of
did.
many kinds.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Magical world.
Yeah.
It's the 20th year or something,
Yes,
right?
it is. 20th
Yeah.
year just happened a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
20 years
Yeah,
since
I
Harry
love
Potter.
it.
That's kind of
20
nuts.
years, my God.
But so then I started listening to a lot of like the tech stuff, This Week in Tech particularly, and stuff on that network because that was my enduring interest. And so that's where I started from. And then
That's how.
Yeah.
For me, it was I was in the UK at the time. I was in college, and I generally used to listen to a lot of like BBC radio. And when the iPlayer came out, sort of around the time that I was there in college that time. And what happened was I ended up working for an archive, and so I'd just be putting data in. So I just end up listening to a lot of like audio documentaries and stuff like that. And,
Right.
and on radio, BBC Radio 4, they used to do a lot of these radio plays. And so I used to listen to. There's like this like audio soap opera called The Archers that I used to listen to. I got really into that at one point. But yeah, and that's sort of like what broke me into just like listening to it for like long periods of time because I'm just sitting there and archiving and I just do nothing but listen to stuff because I'm just like putting data in from like these papers into their like intranet.
you can do
Then-
that. I can't listen to podcast and do work at the same time.
I
of any
can.
sort.
I can. No, but it was literally
It's
just like
mechanical
I'm
work.
I'm just like reading stuff and putting it in.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, like, I just get completely occupied with it. I guess.
I'm not like creatively thinking about anything.
Yeah,
It's literally
but
like
It's
still.
I'm reading
manual
this,
work.
yeah.
Like walking.
I don't know.
I mean, you can do that.
I can do that. Yeah.
That's when
I'm
I
breathing and stuff.
Work is when I listen to music. Other than that, every time I listen to podcasts. So walking and stuff like that, I listen to
Yeah.
podcasts. Commute, I listen to podcasts. But when I'm doing work and I want to kind of like block my ears, that's the one time I listen to music.
But this is you're
But
not
that work that
using
requires your brain.
to like you're thinking
Yeah,
about stuff.
but-
You're thinking about anything. This I'm not thinking about anything.
Okay.
But just literally reading a line and copy
Pasting.
pasting it. Like basically just typing. I'm literally only typing. It's just my
Okay.
fingers moving. But yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then I started listening to The Archers and radio plays and audio documentaries. And then one of the first, I can't remember which was the one that like literally got me into this, but the one that I like really loved and is still listening to right now is The Infinite Monkey Cage.
Oh, that's a good one.
That
Good
and
choices.
I think News Quiz. News Quiz also was another one that I used to really, really like. So the two of them were what I got into initially, and then I was fully addicted to like podcasts. I used to listen to freaking everything. What about you?
I got into podcasts because I was hearing about these things called podcasts. And I was like, let me Google how to listen to them and what I should listen to. So I downloaded Stitcher. And the first podcast I listened to was Death, Sex and Money.
Okay.
Because that's on your top 10 list when you look for how to get into podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Death, Sex and Money and Mark Maron. Those
Mark
are the
Maron,
first two I listened to. I don't listen to either of them anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I think I listened to like so many episodes of Mark Maron. I should just walk. I was unemployed. I should just walk around all day. And I listened to so many episodes back to back to back. And it just like blew my mind that I felt like, oh my God, this conversation, I feel like I'm there. This is so deep.
Yeah.
Then it took me a while to realize that I can find stuff category wise. Then I was
Right.
like, oh, let me look for television stuff. And that's when I found like NPR stuff and like
Right.
a whole bunch. I didn't even know that I could look for categories.
Yeah.
Because when you just try to get into podcasts and everybody's talking about it, it's so difficult to find what episode should I listen to. There's like 500 episodes already of the show.
Yeah.
It's always like, will I get it? Will I understand what's happening?
Am I entering it at a wrong time?
Yeah.
Should I start from the beginning? Or
Should I start from the beginning? It's also like, now I know how I want to listen to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I listen to it at a certain rate.
You sped up.
Because otherwise it's slower and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm feeling this.
Right.
You know, and that takes a while to get into
can't
it.
speed it up, man.
Oh, I speed it up. I'm listening to it.
Depends on what I'm listening to. Like, so I was listening to most things I do speed up. I was listening to this new one called Mogul, which just came out, and that's got a lot of music in it.
Yeah.
So then I'm like,
the only one I have to take it like speed it down to is Song Exploder because then you can't listen to
there's
anything.
music in it, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So this is our sort of like introductions into how we got into podcasts.
Should we do a round of recommendations? What are you listening to recently?
I would totally do some recommending. Okay, so what I'm listening to right now, I listen to so much. I'm going to be recommending our own shows. It's literally going to end up being like that.
Let's not do that, right? I mean, like, because that is... All right, let's do one of our shows. Everybody say what your favorite show on our network is, and then after that, let's give them like let's give them a recommendation.
A real podcast?
Let's cut that out. Not real. I meant an outside of us is what I meant. I meant outside of us. Man,
compared to the fake ones we're doing all the time.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so my go-to, that one that I've been listening to quite a bit of recently and kind of binge listening to a little bit, is The Seen and the Unseen by Amit Varma. So I've been listening to all that, and that show is basically Amit Varma is like an economic journalist and an award-winning one, and he basically looks at public policy and looks at the seen and the unseen effects of it. So I've been really getting into it, and right now he's done the most recent one that I listened to, it's not the latest one, was like about slums, and I think I've listened to everything from artificial intelligence, rent control, future markets in agriculture, floor space index, all that kind of juicy stuff. But it's actually really interesting. It's not a very long show. It's about 15 to 20 minutes, but he breaks down what the policy is or the issue is, and then you get an idea of what are the effects of it and these unseen. And he explains it so beautifully, like really, really well. And Amit also has a slightly odd and cruel sense of humor, which I kind of like as well, and that's why I really enjoy the show.
True.
Yeah. So, what about you guys? What is your?
I've mostly been like, I listen to them so many episodes at work.
Yeah.
So when I'm binge listening, I usually go to Simplified.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to be fun. I don't get to listen to them as often because they know what they're doing and I don't listen to the episodes for feedback.
Yeah.
I wait till there's like at least 5 episodes out. And then I listen to all 5 back to back.
That makes sense.
Because it's just, like, it's their voice. I've so gotten used to their voices making awful jokes in my ear. I really enjoy it. Especially sometimes when Naren goes off on these tangents.
Which they're hilarious.
They're hilarious.
So
I mean, they're
good.
always so scientific, but also so funny.
Yeah.
I really enjoy listening to it.
I know.
And I'm really excited for the new one as well, Anything But Bollywood, that comes out today.
Yeah.
With Q, the first
Hey,
episode.
good job with the plug, man.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Plug,
just
plug,
listened
plug.
to it.
I know.
The
we
first
got a
episode
plug.
with Q, and it is so interesting. It's one of those. I like those long conversational.
Right.
I've like. You know, like you get so many bits of amazing stuff. I'm like, wait, I gotta stop and write this down. Make this note down. All my notes are just like said by this comedian on this podcast. Very inspirational, you know.
Hey, actually, talking about our newer shows, the Rediscovery Project is back. And listen, I love my travel, man. I've a really, really itchy travel bug. I get bitten by it all the time. And we're for the second season doing something totally different, where they're not just talking about a place, but just as people who travel around, you get asked a lot of questions.
Right. Yeah.
So I think their first episode is about
budgeting.
but within like what?
They spend like 2,500 a day. That's their budget.
It's ridiculous.
Which includes
I
like
cannot
stay
imagine.
and travel.
Stay, travel, everything.
I'm sorry, but I just don't understand.
I want to listen to this episode because I don't believe them.
Yeah, I
can't
can't understand that, right? I mean, like, I'm trying to think.
I mean, they've got it down now because they've been doing it for so long, traveling for so long. They've got it down really clear. Public transportation all the time.
Right.
Street food at all times.
Yeah.
Homestays. How to balance it out.
But it's just fine.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy.
They take buses everywhere. I don't want to take a bus in Bombay.
I don't take a bus anywhere. Yeah.
You know?
So I guess that's the difference. That's how you make it happen, right? But I mean, like, just to me, that just seems like such a crazy number to be able to kind of make work.
True. It is a very low number.
What about you?
From our stuff, I like all our shows equally.
What about the one you're on now?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you
Like
recommend
Shunyawan.
her?
No, so
Shunyawan.
Shunyawan. I like Shunyawan. Well, like, Shunyawan's fun. It's a tech show. I mean, like, how am I supposed to recommend my own show? Did you recommend Made in India? Did you recommend IVM Likes?
But on the IVM Likes, that would be really good. I like this show a lot.
I like this show a lot.
Right now, listen now.
But okay, yeah, Shunya one. So it's actually a really interesting tech show. We do it with Sheila Ditya, and the two of us talk to a different entrepreneur who's come on every week, and we talk about all kinds of different issues related to the technology space in India, right? I mean, like, that's something we thought was missing, that we don't really have much commentary on tech in India outside of gadget reviews, right? So I mean, like, we wanted to kind of get into like more deeper, interesting kind of things. So that's that's a fun the one. You know, one which I really do enjoy. I really like listening to Geek Fruit when I have already watched the movie that they're talking about.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I have to keep up.
Yeah.
Because then otherwise I can't listen to it. So.
Okay. But yeah, that's,
but I do keep up sometimes.
Yeah, but so I mean, like, I enjoy the show a lot, but it's just tough because they talk about the movie the week after it comes out, and I almost never see it that quick.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But that's a fun one.
But I go back usually.
So
I will watch this so I can listen to this episode.
And then I'll listen to that episode now. Yeah, that does work.
Yeah, that's what I do for all TV show podcasts. If it says in the subject line it's about this, I'm like, I gotta watch this episode. Watch the show. Then I can listen to this podcast.
That's why I haven't been able to listen. So I was so obsessed with Pop Culture Happy Hour stuff because I don't.
Love it.
I love it, but I haven't been able to like.
It's new stuff.
Haven't seen this.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
I watch all of it and I listen to all the episodes.
No, I can't.
I really like how, if you've noticed, there's been a bunch of these book podcasts that have been coming up.
Right.
Especially based off of books. Like, I think BuzzFeed just did a list of if you like this book, you like this podcast.
I saw that.
It's not even about...
Yeah.
It's not discussing the book.
Yeah.
It's just the same genre.
But that's
because
happening too.
Podcasts are so literary now.
Right.
Which is so great because they're all like narrative and like story building. It's so good. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
No, but so there are a lot of Channel 33 or The Ringer, the website The Ringer, they're starting a new podcast called Bingeable, which is basically... So the first season they're doing Game of Thrones. So they're going to be talking about the books and the movies simultaneously at the same time.
The TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
yeah. So
nice.
that should be kind of interesting, I think.
Yeah, and then you can do a direct comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very much.
I think that's
rip that stuff apart.
Yeah.
Man.
So that
really
I think that's really interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like
I really like the idea of like, you know, when you listen to a podcast and you find somebody new or whatever, like a personality, and you like them, then you go and search
find
for
the other stuff.
Yeah, like even like Long Reads did an interview with Brian Reed of S-Town, which is so fascinating because then I wanted to read everything else about Brian Reed and how he did this.
Right.
Yeah.
And he talks about the process of S-Town and why they did this and why they went why they did the twist in episode 3 instead of the last episode.
Right.
Just so good.
Alec Baldwin interviewed Brian Reed as well on Here's the Thing. And again, so fascinated by this guy. This Brian Reed is becoming quite a popular.
Especially with comedians, if I find... if it's a comedian I don't know and I listen to them on some show and I feel like they're funny, I want to listen to all of them.
You're going to find a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I listened to 3 podcasts back to back with Moshe Kasher, who I just found to be really funny. Yeah. And I've listened to all 3 back to back. Now I know so much about him.
So we've basically patted ourselves on the back with that one. Do we have time to recommend anything more?
Sure, quick round. One podcast each, 2 lines about it.
2 lines. Okay, so one that I, have kind of come back to after a while, but I used to listen to it quite a lot is...
Your 2 lines are done, sorry.
Sorry, too late.
No, that's fine. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
We didn't even get the name.
I know.
It's the one she comes back to, that one.
That one. All the time. It's called The Sporkful. And Dan Pashman. It's a podcast for... it isn't for foodies, it's for eaters. And it's really interesting because I just love the way they talk about food. It's not a typical, I'm not reviewing food, I'm not doing anything. So one of my favorite episodes I always recommend to everyone is this one where they talk about the sound of food and how, the sizzle of a steak or how crunchy and the sound of a crisp, makes you feel like, this is a really good bag of crisps. So weirdly enough, the latest episode that I heard of his is with Kumail Nanjiani.
Call back.
Segue, guys. Smoothness. So he basically talks about how if everyone, I think it was a tweet of his, where he says that, if everyone tried Pakistani food, they'd love.
There would be no more.
There'd be no
terrorism. Yeah. I mean, that's a stretch. But.
So he basically, and he has the same issue with biryani as I do,
I've heard that episode.
Which is no raisins.
Yeah.
I hate raisins.
But
You're
you get
ruining-
raisins in most biryani, don't you?
No. Yeah.
There's always a little that sweet.
One of my friends,
there.
I just had like an Eid dinner and they put like apricots and that was amazing. They put apricots in it. I'm like, apricots I can handle. No more raisins. That's my issue. That's
All
it.
right.
I'm done. I'm done with my biryani conversation.
Okay. All right. Cool. Sporkful. I like that show. The one I've heard that too. So one of my favorites over there on that is when they talk about the $14 slice of pizza that you have to wait in line for like an hour and a half to get.
Yes.
I thought that was a really fun episode to listen to.
They also did an episode about weed brownies, which was
I've heard that one.
amazing.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
I have not, but I should.
No, just food infused with
Yeah, with like,
Yeah. Not just brownies. Brownies are pedestrian. It's like gourmet food.
gourmets.
Yeah.
What about your, Amit, what's your...
I guess Exponent. I guess that would be a good one to recommend to people. It's Ben Thompson who writes the website Stratechery, and Exponent's like a really deep dive into some issue of technology or the other, right? A couple of weeks ago, they did something on the state of the podcasting world.
Interesting.
Last week, they were talking about Amazon and Whole Foods purchase. So, I mean, like, he takes one aspect of something that's happened in technology and does a really, really deep dive into it and looks at it from like a business perspective rather than just a technology perspective, which I think is kind of interesting. So yeah, I'd recommend that. I mean, I got two things I like. I like tech and I like basketball. Right? These are my.
I like two things. I like tech. I like basketball.
This is it, man. I mean, these are the things that I follow.
That is like the worst imitation of Amit.
It wasn't an imitation. It was like a manly man saying, I like two things. Beer
Worst imitation
and women.
of manly men I've
Damn
ever heard.
it. Sorry.
Tech and basketball, really? That corresponds to beer and women.
I'll do it for you.
Sports
I like
and-
sports and I like tech. Is that better? It's like one of those. I always do these. You know those. Actually on one of my shows, it was so funny. They had a song called Mindfire, like this band called Cheyenne and Smithy. And I don't know why the first thing I thought of was like, "Bert, do you want to like play Mindfire right now?" And that's like the first thing I thought of. And because then Minesweep, was that the game?
Minesweeper.
Minesweeper?
Yeah, it was close. But yeah, so every time I was just like, dude, let's like totally play like some Mindfire. And like, yeah, I think I'm at the top of the leaderboard. I ragged them so much, I felt really bad. So what's yours, Shar?
I've got two I want to recommend. One called Beautiful Anonymous by Chris Gethard, the comedian.
Okay.
He basically takes anonymous phone calls and talks. He has to talk to them for at least 30 minutes.
Whoa.
And usually they go on way longer. He can't hang up. They have to hang up first.
Okay.
So it's has spawned some really interesting conversations.
I'm gonna get this now.
Really, really fun. There's a really nice one with a bisexual Indian dude who talks about how India views, sexuality, and it is so interesting how his parents view him and how how does my brother think of me. Very nice. And another one I want to recommend is called, which I'm pretty sure I've recommended before, called My Dad Wrote a Porno. Season 3 is out. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's self-explanatory. My dad wrote a porno. That's it.
I heard that. It's really funny. I heard the first, I think like 9 or 10 episodes. First season is 13 episodes, right? Yeah. So I think I got most of the way through it.
It's really,
it's really good.
I also want to listen to it because of you.
I listened to it on the flight and then I laughed out loud so many times. I was like, oh my God, people are going to look at me.
So yeah, that was, we've got way too many podcasts for people to listen to.
Yes, we do.
So flood your podcast app of choice. If not, at least like download the IVM podcast.
Yeah, that's what you should
should
do.
be the
That should
podcast
be your
app of your
podcast app
Yeah.
of choice.
Thanks, guys. Subtle, I must say. Subtle.
Subtlety is for suckers, man. Download my app.
Okay, so that was IVM Likes. Thanks, guys, for being on the show.
Awesome.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you guys, how do they do that? I'm on Twitter as @maybe, MAEBE. What were you on?
Sure, I'm on Twitter as Doshi Amit, DOSHIAMIT.
Yep.
And I'm on Twitter as Sharanya_SSHARANY.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.